Good late morning, everyone. It's fantastic to be with you all, and those of you watching the recording. Um, my goal here today is to make your life maybe just a tad bit simpler, which I think we all could value and need. I am a clinical associate professor at the University of Georgia, and I run both Grady News Source and the Oglethorpe Echo, our two working news organizations for our journalism majors, um, focusing on all the digital products. So, a lot of what I do through the Journalism Innovation Lab at UGA and just kind of in general is think about what we should be doing in order to really engage our audiences where they're at. We all understand whether it's print, radio, TV, or any type of information that most of people's eyeballs and ears are attached to digital screens and digital products. And so I think it's just really thoughtful and important at this point to make sure that we uh, try to make this easy for ourselves. I think a lot of stations that I work with through my work with GAB, they don't have the capacity to add people or, like entire digital staffs in order to address the new paradigm of how people are consuming news and information about their communities. And so I think the key is really going to be like doing what we do already, but just being really, really intentional and precise about getting those audiences that are in different places. So that's kind of the idea of today. And I'm hoping that toward the end here that we can do a lot of participating if you're interested. Or even I'm happy to look at, oh, I think someone's got a mic on. Happy to look at anything that you have or brainstorm ideas with you as well. So that's the idea of today. I will say that everything that we are talking about today is in this document. It's called the Digital Strategy Guide for Broadcasters. I built it a couple summers ago, but I update it all the time. You can reach out to Mary or Mackenzie or anybody at GAB. The website is there as well. In order to get a copy of this. And it's a big Google Doc that has all of these categories right here. Just you can kind of pick and choose. Hey, I want to learn more about email newsletters and what, some best practices and best strategy. This is based on research that I do around digital products, what's working best for audiences and things like that, but also the experience I have of now sending now more than 50 students into stations and local news organizations around the state of Georgia, and the kind of work they've done to try to build up these digital products. So just so you know, everything I'm going to talk about is in here, and you can kind of revisit it at your leisure. So the biggest question I get when I am working with stations is I've got this story. Where and how should I play it on digital? Um, and I think that's actually a really hard question. I think, it seems like, well, shoot, we'll just put this up on Facebook. Oh, okay, we'll just, really quick make an Instagram reel and put that up. But we know that social media audiences are decently fickle, that digital products are not always clicked on or opened. And we also know that there's just a stupid amount of volume, right? I mean, there's just so much digital content flowing through our culture and our atmosphere right now that you do have to be really thoughtful about it in order to capture people's attention and really engage audiences. It can't just be throwing every story that you did or that week on a social media platform or in an email newsletter or any of the above. So I think that question is a really good one, and I think that the big concept or the problem that we're struggling with here is that we know from any analytics that you take that most people are getting their news and information and entertainment from social media or other digital platforms, right? Versus our legacy platforms or products. So I think we feel obviously beholden to engage those audiences. What I want you to really think about today, and I'm going to try to give you as many ideas and tools and ways of doing this as possible, is that you're already creating good content. It's just about finding the square peg in the round hole kind of paradigm as far as taking the stuff you already have and making it work the most for you. And what I would encourage you in general is to think simple and think short. when it comes to digital content, like you do not have to overproduce. You don't have to create something that's huge, and it doesn't even really have to be fancy like it would be on some of our other products and platforms. In fact, the more authentic and informal, the better. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm happy at any time to answer questions. Just literally just shout out, and I will stop and like let's talk about it. So I always want to start with just a couple quick thoughts. If you've talked to me before at all, if we've done like consulting work or I've sent a student to you or whatever, there are a couple pieces of context that we need before we start talking about how to make your content work for you on digital. The first one is this, and this is probably, with the exception of AI, which obviously is upending the game in other specific ways. This is the other big change. So this is data from like 2000 to 2003, which, by the way, the line has trended even more so down since this point, about social media referral traffic. So I remember being in my print newspaper newsroom in the late 90s, early 2000s. And particularly when Facebook started really kind of coming out in the 2000s, and thinking, this is great. We don't have to run the back end. It's this great technology that everyone's interested in. We can just put our content there, and they'll come to our website or they'll read our paper. It's going to be wonderful. And that actually was true for a good little while. Like for a while, people used all of our social media content as a referral to our actual organization, to our products, to whatever our radio station, our TV station, our websites. That has dramatically changed, particularly in the last few years. Social media referrals literally have fallen off a cliff, and people are not clicking through anymore. Now, I mean, there are some small caveats to this, but I think it fundamentally changes how we do our work on digital platforms when we realize that if you say click here to read the article, or click here to watch the full newscast, or click here for the, to go listen to the full show, they're not doing it. They're not clicking here. They are staying on the social media platform that's in front of them. And so that's a really important part of what we do and how we do it on digital. If you look at the bottom of this, it talks about organic digital products versus social products. And I kind of want to make a distinction there. I think it's really important because one's monetizable and one's not. Social media is run by some dude who built an algorithm who decides things. And we sell at the Oglethorpe Echo digital ads on social, but it's not a viable source. It's a bundled source of revenue because we can't ever control it. Our organic digital products, our website, our apps, our email newsletters, and things like events, things that are in person. Those are the things that we can monetize and really make sure we understand how people are engaging with us. So that's kind of a big point number one. Those organic digital products are the things that you can monetize. And just a quick thing about that, because everyone wants to talk about money usually. We can create digital ads and digital sponsorships on those organic digital products like websites, apps, newsletters, podcasts, video streaming, OTT types of things, right? We can either sell ads or sell sponsorships that allow people to partner with us in that work. And that is a space we can control. And I think it's really important that we continue to try to shift our eggs over to that basket. Because social media is going to be and continues to be volatile, but also because it's not really its role, and it doesn't do well at monetization. I also just really encourage you, as we're thinking about these ideas later, to think about special editions. So I've seen a huge uptick in the last academic year, basically, of special editions. And this could be like anything from a print magazine to a special edition email newsletter that's all themed on concerts, right? Or a special edition radio show that really just goes through the specific topic, but in depth. People are really into and really responding to, and it's becoming easier to monetize this special edition kind of stuff. It's not just your run-of-the-mill headlines or news and information or even your typical playlist. It's some kind of deep dive that's niche, or niche, if you say it like that. And I really think that this is a place that it makes sense, right? Like if we're talking about like how we consume media, if you think about like your Netflix, or anything that you consume, you want, like, you have a lane, right? You're really into something. And so these special edition, very tailored, kind of in depth on one topic or idea are just really engaging audiences better than that broad survey or curation of lots of things that you do. So just something to keep in mind as like a general trend, that I'm just continuing to watch, be successful. When it comes to our social media platforms, so our organic digital products are the things that we can monetize: our website, apps, email, newsletters. The rest of it in digital is really called social. And those are the platforms that you're very familiar with. And I just kind of want to make a call as we kind of start to think about these things, is that social media, is going to be kind of a gateway, but not a direct referral based on that data I just showed you, to your revenue building products. Um, I think the best way to frame social media work for stations in this TV and radio stations in this moment right now is it has two roles. One, it can help you build your brand. So people recognize you, they see your colors, they see your logo, they know that voice, they see that person, and they feel a familiarity, like they understand why you're there, who you are, what you're telling them, what information they can get from you, right? Or what entertainment they can get from you. And then part two is social really is good for interaction. And this really is different than how most people do social media right now. Most news organizations or stations are doing social in a way that just takes their content and puts it on social platforms. Social media was built from the very, very beginning to be about interaction. And so if you are not thinking like, how could someone share or do a picture or comment or respond, then you're really not using social media for all it's worth. So I want you to keep those two things in mind as well as we talk about these ideas. When I send my students at the Echo or News Source or any of the stations they've worked for, and we do anything on social media, it's got to fulfill one of those two things, or both simultaneously is even better. Is it building your brand and helping them understand who you are, or is it actively trying to interact with your audience? Because that's what social does well. Otherwise, it gets lost in the algorithm. People scroll past, and it's not making the impact you would like it to make. So, one last piece of context, and then we're going to kind of get into the details. I always talk about PAM. Um, the purpose, audience, and message of what you are doing fully determines what you do and how you do it. For our news oriented stations, it's literally about what you can give your audience that CNN or Fox News or the Eric Erickson show, or right, like they can't give them. What can you show them or engage with them on, information wise, news wise, that they're not able to get from a streaming national source? And then for our entertainment oriented stations, we have found the best, sweetest spot about community connectedness, feeling like you are physically there, that you see things, that you show up, that you can tell them where they should be going this weekend. And then that's the big goal for what you do. But ultimately, when we're talking about anything on digital, it's always about connection. So both of them are connection based. How am I giving people information that changes their life, that gives them the new perspective, that connects them to other people? And so when we tell stories on digital platforms, that's literally the thing, is how is this story connecting you to someone else, in your community? And I would frame just about every story I told on digital that way. I don't think that's always how we frame all stories, but I think that's digital's sweet spot, as it goes. So one last note about digital products and platforms. This is 2023 data, but it hasn't changed actually very much since then, which is kind of shocking in some ways. Um, I'm a big fan of doing less. Um, And so if you were just to look at this data as far as US adults and like where they're actually at, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram is probably where you should be. And when it comes to social, particularly. If I were you, I would probably jettison Twitter or X at this point, unless you literally have a very specific audience or you've got good engagement on it. And if you do, that's fantastic. But I'm just seeing everyone kind of atrophy there for lots of different reasons. There are definitely some cool subgroups in here, and I do think TikTok is really interesting and fantastic, but it is not necessarily, it's very time consuming, and very challenging in some ways. So if you're like, I'm going to put my eggs in some basket, what am I going to do with my digital strategy? YouTube is still the number one. It's not a video hosting site, it's actually social media. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But Facebook and Instagram are the places where people really are at. And they are both, YouTube and Instagram are actually continuing to grow. They've got a 20 to 30% growth margin every year. Facebook's actually starting to tip down just a smidge, as far as its growth, but it's still very big. So thoughts as far as, like, do I need to be on every platform? Do I need to be doing all the things? No. I think you need to kind of think about your strategy in a very specific way and nail it down. So you should not be on every social or digital platform or have every product unless you have abundant resources and a big staff, right? Like to create that. Instead, you really want to be precise. Choose one or two products or platforms that you want to put everything into, and then quality over quantity and always consistency. Our email newsletter is one of our best products for both news organizations, and it's because it's direct deliver. People generally, when they sign up for it, they're interested in it, so they open it and they click on it, and it shows up every Saturday morning or Friday morning, depending on the newsletter. And that's really a comfort to people. They know it's coming, and that's a big deal. So this is my kind of secret sauce when it comes to today. So when you are thinking about taking the content you already have and repurposing it, massaging it, or being intentional about it, whatever you're doing out in the field, out in your communities for digital, I think it literally is a choice of one of three things. And I think those three things I'm about to tell you, what I would love for you to do is even think about them before you go out to do the story or to get the information, or you make the phone call to like figure out, what you're going to talk about next. If you can just do one thing in one of these three, pots, and just pull one thing out and make that your digital content for whatever you are producing, I literally think you're going to win. I think it's fairly straightforward. So you either want your audience to see the story that you're telling them. You want your audience to see the reporting or the process behind whatever you're telling them. Or you want your audience to see the engagement that you are having over this issue. And that's it. And I'm going to break these down here in a minute, but I go into, and when I send my students out to do their reporting, I'm like, so are we going to make our digital content about the story itself or the information or the event? Like if you're going to be at a street fair, is it going to be about capturing things at the street fair? Is it going to be about you being at the street fair, walking through in the process, right, the behind the scenes? Or is it going to be about getting people to talk to you and then getting your audience to engage in that conversation? That's it. One of those three things. And I would not necessarily do all three unless you were like had like 12 cups of coffee, right? I mean, I think it's okay to just say, I am going to do my digital version of this, story or this information or this event or whatever, just in this one lane, because I would rather that be intentional and high quality and get out there relatively fast than trying to do all the things. So I hope this ends up simplifying it for you, but I'm going to walk through kind of what these mean. So when I say see the story, I'm talking about a couple of different things, and I'm actually going to pop out here so I can open some windows for you and show you examples. So the easiest and probably the one that we go to first when we think of see the story is an interview, right? Like I'm talking to somebody. I think often, I particularly see this with TV stations, but I think it can happen in radio as well. We think that this has to be like long or well produced, or this can be for digital particularly, as authentic and kind of raw as you want it to be. In fact, it's even more engaging often on places like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube if it's like that. So here is a quick interview that one of our students posted for like a big cleanup event that was happening.
To help this environment.
So why is it important to pick up your trash?
So it's to help the world, because if animals eat trash, they can get sick, and animals also kind of help. And if it goes into the sewers, it goes all the way down to the ocean. We're picking up trash.
Okay, first of all, so did y'all hear that? Mackenzie, can you give me a nod? Okay, great. Thank you. So that is one of those pieces where it was like 5 seconds. You're out there, you're like participating in the cleanup, right? You're doing some nat sound collection, you're capturing some B-roll or whatever. That clip is probably not necessarily going to make it in the newscast. I don't know, right? If it's going to, rise to that level, it's a little bit more raw and informal, but that is going to go absolutely wild on digital because you've got those little boys talking about animals eating trash and ruining the environment. Those types of tiny interview snippets, particularly of people who are impacted or younger people who typically are not necessarily giving you a really strong soundbite, but feel very real. That is a great way to present that story digitally, build your brand, engage the audience. Were your kids out at the cleanup, right? Do your kids also worry about trash? I don't know. And then connect to your audience. I do see a hand raised. Herb? Feel free to turn on your mic and talk if you've got a question.
No, I wanted to just give you a thumbs up on that interview.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. No, I'm shoot. Everybody loves feedback. Yeah, and I write. And how cute is that? And I think that's one of those things where this is low hanging fruit, y'all. Like that is your digital product that you put out with this story that you did, and that will drive people more than anything else. The second big option is B-roll, of course, right? And again, if you're a radio station, please capture video too. If you're a TV station, please capture really good audio too, right? We're all, multi-platform journalists now. I think B-roll, particularly with captions, I'm seeing do so much better. A good voiceover with B-roll is obviously something that we do well, and and we know how to do, and we teach our students how to do. But captioning is sometimes even more effective because so many people listen to digital products and platforms without sound. I'm not going to actually put in my AirPods or turn up the sound, unless it's really good or I'm really interested. Otherwise, I'm just kind of seeing if it's visually interesting enough. And so once you add captions, you are going to actually engage a so much larger portion of the audience. Let me just say real quick too, in case I forget. One of the cool things about focusing on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook specifically is right now they have all developed both vertical and horizontal orientations. So Facebook stories, which is its vertical orientation, isn't fabulous. Not people aren't really into that quite yet, but Facebook will allow you to put up vertical video and they'll put, the black curtains on either side. Instagram, you can do both. In YouTube, now it has YouTube and YouTube Shorts, which is vertical. So what's really cool is that it used to be you had to go, okay, am I shooting vertical or horizontal if I'm doing, this video for my digital piece? No, actually, you could probably shoot both or either and find a home for it on any of these products and platforms. And that makes me very happy. Oh, Mackenzie's point too about having text on screen is an accessibility issue. 100% heart shoe. Yes, like it is so important to make sure that we are not just thinking about audio all the time and that anyone can read what we're doing. And being cognizant of that is so important. So here's a quick caption example from the Oglethorpe Echo. And you got some really nice bluegrass music. It's a free bonus today. That was made with a program called Adobe Express. It's linked here, and Mackenzie may help me and we can send out these slides later. Adobe Express is a free program. The Adobe Suite is actually a very expensive program, but Adobe Express is the free part. And it allows you to upload video and slap captions on it in, no joke, 30 seconds. It is the most user-friendly tool. Canva also, at its free level, allows you to caption video very quickly and easily. And so if you are looking to throw text over a very short video with B-roll, you've got some really good, movement or nat sound. That is a really nice, quick digital element. You're out there anyway. You've got some B-roll. Maybe you cut it. It doesn't belong in your package. It's not fantastic, but if you throw some captions over it, it provides some context. So those are the two programs we use the most for that. We also do something, we're starting to do more with screen recordings, where we actually will take people through the process of a website, and I'll show you one of those here in a second. And that can be also done through Express or Canva, which are free. The other thing I will tell you, that when it comes to seeing the story, that our readers really, really like are locator maps. And so this is an example of a locator map that we made. Where Little League and all the rec sports are in Oglethorpe County, it was literally just unmatched chaos when it came to parking and getting in and out of that place. I mean, the amount of anger, it was a powder keg waiting to happen. So they expanded the parking lot a few weeks ago, and making this really, really basic locator map to show people where the current space is, where the expanded space is, how they're going to be able to move physically in the new space, was a great way to digitally visualize something that was super boring. So we sent a reporter out there, and they got photos and video, but it was literally a parking lot, y'all. Okay. It was the most boring visual I had ever seen in my life. Making these like little locator maps, I feel like, works for just about any story. And we use a program, if you haven't heard of it, called Data Wrapper. Data Wrapper is 100% free, and it allows you to make visualizations of all types. So it does locator maps, as well as all different types of charts, graphs, and tables. And they are interactive if you embed them into your website, or you can just take a screen, shot of them, download them as a still image, and use them on social media, email newsletters, any of those places. This really is one of the best tools, I think, that's out there right now. And the fact that it's free brings me great joy for lots of reasons. We also do, if you've got, again, a story that's really hard to visualize, realize that nothing can go on digital without a visual. It just can't be done. And so sometimes we will just really quick, like bar charts and pie charts, right? And I'm not a big fan of a pie chart, to be honest, for lots of data nerd reasons. But bar and line graphs are super easy in Data Wrapper to cook up, and they provide that visual context. What's interesting is you would not think that bar charts are really engaging on social media, but they are. And that I don't know how to explain, except for it's a visual, and it gives people a sense, oh my gosh, okay, what's going on here? Particularly if you've really thought about the news value of your data. So a big fan of using Data Wrapper specifically. There are lots of other programs too, but to create locator maps, to create some basic data visualizations in order to see the story. And then the last few ideas behind this one is an explainer video. My students have started doing this for the Oglethorpe Echo, and it has gotten like semi-viral, because what they essentially do is they force these like county officials who literally do not have any stage presence, right? They're just like, they're like, really, you're going to video me? And they're kind of freaking out about it, but to like talk us through something. So we had a very famous one where Jeff Sharp, our code compliance officer, was out at a solar farm where we were having trouble with runoff, and he's like pointing to where this red clay is like running into this thing. We had over 8,000 views in the first 2 days on that. That's just outrageous, but it's because no one gets to see Jeff Sharp doing his job, right? And so you doing a quick little explainer video with someone very briefly, 30 seconds or less, just kind of explaining what's happening in the story, and you turn the camera on them, has been very engaging for us. So here's an example. I think this is an AED. Yeah.
And what they do is it's a temperature controlled outdoor cabinet. It's on all the time, and it's available to anyone who could use it if they need to. And the thing about these is when you open it, it alarms audibly, and it sends messages to our dispatch and to officers and to the school staff that it's been opened. And the assumption is that if you're opening it, there's a chance that it's being used. So we'd want to dispatch everybody to it.
So what I love about this is we've had 35 emoji reaction, including the care emoji. People are concerned, people who need to use AEDs. But 2,500 views in just a handful of days. I mean, that's actually pretty stinking good in a county of 15,000 people. And so these types of mini explainer vertical videos even have been really doing well. And again, it's kind of putting people in the spotlight who don't normally get to explain what they do for their job. We've got one coming about car seat checks, these two dispatchers who go to roadblocks and like help people check their car seats as like a free service in the county. That thing's going to go crazy too. So that's another great, hey, how can we see this story? Can we just have you explain real quick what this looks like as you're standing next to it? We also are doing more audio visualizations. So we use two programs for this. So this is particularly for my radio people. Let's say you've got great sound, but you don't necessarily have the ability to get a great visual along with it. Two different choices here, Audiogram and Headliner, again, both completely free tools. So Audiogram looks like this. It allows you to put an image in the background. It automatically captions the audio file you upload and creates kind of like a waveform. That is a really nice little embeddable piece if I've got audio, but I'm not exactly sure, what the visual component will be, and it keeps people a little bit longer on that audio. The other one is called Headliner, and that is a really nice tool if you're going to do things that look a little bit more biteable. And they do, and again, a lot of different formats. So you can format it for Facebook or Instagram or different formats like that. And it creates that waveform that allows you to visualize something that you don't technically have video or strong visuals for. And we've been using it from time to time in conjunction with screen recordings in order to try to tell a story a little bit differently. So let me show you this one.
To go out and look at those maps, go to www.georgiadfirm.com, type in their address, and see their flood risk. Even if they feel like they're not in a flood zone, everyone is in a flood zone. It's just whether they're in a high risk area or a lower risk area. So if everybody can just spend a few minutes looking at that, they'll know. They'll be able to better protect themselves in the future. Since Clark, the community officials there, they are reaching out to certain subgroups within the county, talking about this process, and specifically linking back to that webpage that I mentioned earlier. It's important for folks to go out and.
So again, not super fancy, but because we had good audio and we wanted to show people how to use the website, we were able to put that together at the same time. I will say this may or may not look complicated depending on your familiarity with these things, but once you learn how to do one of these once, then you can crank them out really pretty fast using those Headliner and Audiogram tools. Any big questions or thoughts on this first section? Because I'm happy to do anything, but these are just all ideas for how I can, when I'm out reporting or out at an event or out doing anything, ways that I can come up with little tiny individual digital things based on what I already have.
I have a quick question. So with the interview sections, what do you think is like the max amount of time that we can get away with, basically? Do you think it would be like 1 minute, 30 seconds? Like, what do you see performs the best in terms of length for those interview clips?
Hope, that's such a good question. So it depends to some degree on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube if we're kind of playing with those as a general idea. Right now, 20 to 30 seconds is really the gold standard across most of them, though. Once you get over a minute, then you're if you look at the YouTube like analytic curve, you are really, unless it's super engaging, you're going to lose people. So we tell our kids in general between 20 and 40 seconds, and to kind of try to aim for that and to clip it super tight. So one of the things that's really important with interviews on social is that you don't want a lot of lead time. You want it to start like almost immediately where they start talking, almost to the point where they're probably going to miss the first little bit. And that's okay because then they'll watch it again. And that's actually not, it's more of a feature than a bug, strangely enough, when it comes to the analytics. So that's what I would shoot for. I think there's always, times where you can go longer. Somebody is really compelling, something that's really compelling. When it comes to vertical, shorter. Horizontal, you can go a little bit longer. And that just like is a pure psychological thing when it comes to how we watch video.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Dr. Bright, we did have a question from someone who registered, and I think this might be a good time to bring this one up. It was about podcasts. They want to turn content that they have into a podcast without spending too much time on it. Do you think maybe audiogram or headliner that you just mentioned might be a good tool for this person?
100%, Mackenzie. And I think that's the problem with audio only is that it doesn't play as well on those digital platforms that we're talking about. Like you've got to have some kind of a visual component. So if you have, well, there's two choices. So yes, the first and easiest would be an audiogram or headliner audio visualization, where you take an image that's somehow demonstrative of what the conversation's about, and then you can put the waveform over it. Again, like Cope's question, like 20 to 30 seconds would be plenty. So clip that thing super tight, make it a really, really good, impactful, part of your podcast, and then hopefully send people to the full thing. The other thing that I am seeing grow in popularity like mad, and I'm sure you all have seen this too, are vlogcasts. But video podcasts, right? Where people are actually in this podcast studio with their mics, but there's a camera on them. We are seeing this grow across topical areas. It used to be like a talk radio, right, thing, like Howard Stern's show, remember? Like he started putting cameras in that was like a whole thing. Now it really is kind of transcending. And that video podcast kind of feeling could be a great way if you happen to just set up a freaking cell phone camera, right? Like, and just like go ahead while you're having the conversation in the studio anyway. And like edit or video the whole thing. And then you can just trim a tiny little piece, and then they can actually see you having that conversation, and then take them to the full podcast. And I do think there's a lot of important things about that. There's transparency, there's accountability, right? Like that I can see who I'm talking to, but also we like to see people, we're just voyeurs at heart. And so I would really encourage people to play with that, particularly if you have a guest on a podcast that is particularly dynamic, interesting, well-known, even just locally, like, right? People are going to want to see them with their headphones on in front of the mic. There's a certain fun thing to that. I feel like I just saw a comment come up too, but it went away.
Yeah, Ernestine asked, what is an easy and free way to edit video for the beginner?
Great. So it depends. Good. Ooh, you're a good group. Okay. I literally use iMovie, y'all. And if I tell my video professor friends at the University of Georgia, they roll their eyes at me because they're Adobe Premiere folks. But Adobe Premiere has too many buttons for me to be able to, because I'm a digital girl. I want to go quickly. So I think iMovie is one of the easiest out there. It is literally like a drag and drop. You upload your files, you pull them down into the timeline, and then you can trim them and move them and put captions on them right in that timeline. And there are tons of iMovie tutorials. The other tool that I think is really good for phone-based vertical video is called CapCut. And so a lot of people use CapCut in order to make Instagram Reels, TikToks, and it is really easy to use. I feel like we used to use something called Quick. There have been lots of different kind of iPhone-based app versions, but I think right now CapCut is the easiest and most straightforward. You also can do editing inside of your photos on your phone itself. Like, it's unbelievable what you can do inside of that little photos widget at editing. My daughter was in a talent show a few weeks ago, and I literally did all my phone editing in the Photos app before I posted it to social. So the key with any editing in that realm is about making cuts. It's about making it start as soon as you can, making sure there's no lag time at the end, and choosing the right, most impactful, most informational, most interesting slice. Once you've done that, the cuts can be done in lots of different ways. Good question. Okay, so option one, and this is an option obviously most of us will probably end up going with, right, is if we're gonna do something for our legacy station, but we want to make sure it also reaches our digital audiences, we're going to try to visualize part of the story. Interview, B-roll, a graphic, or some kind of explainer or audio viz. The next kind of option, though, and I would love to see more of this, particularly at like my more legacy, stations that maybe have a little bit more of a formal feel to them. I think what you're going to see with these younger audiences, our millennials, our Gen Z specifically, um, is they want to see the reporting. They want to see the process, and they actually want to see you out there talking to people and telling them what you see. There is a huge desire, and I teach, all Gen Zs right now. There is a huge desire for them to feel authentically linked to the people who are giving them their news and information. They are not just okay with it being W blank blank blank. That really doesn't mean as much to them as seeing Mackenzie's face and going, "Oh, that's Mackenzie. Yeah, she was at that street festival. That was so cool." Right? So when it comes to bridging audiences and building new, younger audiences, this is a great technique. And again, you would just think of it before you go out, and there's several different ways to do it. And I'll give you some quick thoughts. The first is a stand up, right? Which we know all about, but I encourage your stand ups to be vertical, and I encourage them to be very informal, because I think that's just where the engagement is going when it comes to showing things. So, just show you a quick example.
Reuse store is open for 10 days out of the month, so teachers can come get pencils, a computer monitor, and even this whole filing cabinet for free. But on the first Wednesday of every month, students, religious organizations, and more can come get free supplies at the Creative Reuse Open House.
So just really short, but like one of the things that Christian has always done well is he's just Christian. Like, you know what I mean? There's no pretense there. He's got a little kind of dressed up thing going. He's got his lav mic, right? But he's directly talking to us. This little tiny snippet is going to do much better than a very formal stand up. And we've definitely seen more informal ones where people are actually physically holding the phone right out in front of them and things like that as well. But right now, we are teaching all of our students to, whenever they're out in the field doing anything, they record a stand up. And they are in the place where they are. They show us that they're in that place. They tell us what they see, smell, hear, feel, and who they're talking to and why they're there. And sometimes we will just slam those into our Instagram stories. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like here and more in a minute. The second option is obviously to go live. We all know that there are, drawbacks to going live. We don't do it tons. We do live shots, of course, for our show. But going live obviously has, some risk involved depending on where you are. But I will say on digital products and platforms, the authenticity of live is always a big deal, even if it's for a very short period of time. And it should be kind of like Hope's question, a very limited run. But I would encourage you to think about that as an option to go live on Instagram, and do your video that way, to go live on Facebook. Another option is to show process. This is a little bit longer. This was a longer piece one of our students put together. But I don't know about you. I still think our entire job is like a mystical, unicorn in the forest for most people. They don't understand what happens in our newsrooms and how they work. And so we put this together in order to try to dispel that. And I think it was really engaging for the people who saw it.
I am on a Monday morning, and you're looking at the Grady News Source newsroom. Empty, quiet, and still. Not because there's no news to be found, but because news doesn't happen in the newsroom.
Today, news is happening at
the Madison County Sheriff's Office,
Empower College and Career Center in Jefferson, Georgia.
Athens Clarke County Fire Department,
and the Georgia State Capitol. This means that every day starts at 9:10 sharp, with a pitch meeting led by our 3-person team of producers. After hearing story pitches from our team of multimedia journalists, our producers kick them to the curb to hit the ground running, with finding sources, conducting interviews, and editing packages for our evening news. As the room clears out, they're left with the important task of turning stories into shows, working with our technical team to bring their creative vision to life. News truly takes an army, and none of the efforts of our reporters or producers would ever see the light of day without our tech team. This button allows our producers to communicate with our on-air talent in real time. These buttons are a perfect example of where the skills and knowledge of our tech team come into play.
Hi, I'm Kira. I am one of the senior production managers here at Grady News Source this year. But this is our TriCaster, and basically all of these different fun light up buttons control the different camera angles, video sources, packages, video.
Okay, so you guys gonna get the idea, right? I think a lot of you have done behind the scenes kind of process oriented work before, but don't forget that your audience is refreshing all the time. And obviously that was a longer piece. You could obviously just show little segments of it, but I will say, obviously the weather screen, right? I mean, the green screen is always lucky to get people, but there are lots of ways for us to show who we are and what we're doing and how it works. And I think that is a really engaging part of creating digital content. I also want to show you a package from one of my former students. She's actually now a reporter at Bankrate. And this is definitely like deep in the TikTok genre. But one of the things I really like about what she did with this piece from a process, see the reporting standpoint, is she's got her sources behind her. So this is the floating head motif where she cuts herself out and like repositions herself on the screen. You can do this with CapCut, or you can actually build it in TikTok this way. But what's really cool is that I can see where she got the information by the screenshot behind her. So I want you to just, again, you've probably seen things like this, but take a look.
Today, I'm not talking about this conclave. I'm talking about this conclave. The Federal Open Market Committee is not expected to lower interest rates today. But there are a lot of similarities between the FOMC and the College of Cardinals who convene starting today to elect a new pope. Both groups' processes are shrouded in secrecy, almost intentionally to protect the integrity of the process. Even though Fed officials aren't secluded from the rest of society like the way the Cardinals are during the voting process, they do go on blackout about a week and a half before the Fed's meeting, so not to muddy the message, and also to prevent the dissemination of market-moving information. Then there's this guy, Jerome Powell, who's basically Ray Fiennes in the movie. His job is to guide the committee through the rate-setting process, steering it to a consensus, after which everyone votes on what to do with interest rates. Here's why all of this matters in an era when President Donald Trump is commenting publicly on Fed policy. Trump is very vocal about what he thinks the FOMC should do, cut interest rates. But the Fed fears that could fuel more inflation, especially if prices are already on the way up because of tariffs.
So just a really fun example of what you can do with, first of all, just a clever idea, the two conclaves, and obviously what was going on with the Pope this week, right? This was just beautiful. But also, and this was done using CapCut, the idea that you can show behind you what is physically happening in a way that's sometimes hard to visualize. This is going to take a little bit more time to pull off, I'll be honest, but you may be people on your staff that have that skill set, or you have that skill set, and you want to maybe make an attempt of like doing one of these kinds of explainers to understand something better in your community, once a quarter. It wouldn't have to be every day, that's for sure. I couldn't pump one out every day. But just a really fun way to use process-based reporting. Couple other quick thoughts for ways to not just see the story, but see the reporting that's really engaging. We've been doing a lot with tours lately in our newsrooms, food tours, historical site tours, sending our reporters out with their phones to just experience things in the community. And again, been going very well. So this is a recent food tour.
I'm Libby Hobbs.
And I'm Adriana Cascio.
And we're the business reporters for the Oglethorpe Echo. Tag along with us as we do a food tour of Oglethorpe County.
Our first stop is Town and Country Cafe. I got tequeños, which is fried cheese, and then I also got an affogato, which is vanilla ice cream and an espresso.
And I got their Cuban drink, which has brown sugar, half and half, and espresso. And then I also got their bloated plantain chips, which has plantain chips. We got chicken on it. I don't like cheese, so I didn't ask for cheese, but you can get cheese as well.
Now, what's rude about me showing you this is it's lunchtime, so I apologize in advance, and this food all looks fabulous. I will say that this post immediately resulted in a bunch of comments where people are like, go to this restaurant, try this food, and so talk about engagement. And that it was really important when the girls first turned in this project, they were critiquing the food. That was a bit of a problem, right? We literally have like 7 restaurants total in the county. So, and some of them are our advertisers. We probably don't need to say the rice was too crunchy, but showing them the lay of the land, what they have to offer, and watching them enjoy some of the more strange, yes, that's pickles on pizza. That's an off menu option at Crawford Pizza. Showing them that was a really great way to kind of engage and do some digital storytelling. We do a good amount of behind the scenes work, and the students really love it, but our younger audiences really love it too. So I just want to show you an example of this. So this is an incredibly short clip of someone we had live in the studio for our entertainment program called Night Shift. It's new this semester. And it was just a little snippet of somebody recording, down in the studio and then pulling them to our full show. So that was actually really good because we tagged the artist and he had a big following. So that worked really well. And then last but not least are teases. This is something that we do on a regular basis where we just literally stack up where our reporters are for the week, for the day, for the month, and show people kind of the fact that we're out there and doing things.
News source, I'll have what is taking the accused so long to get a trial inside of Madison County.
And could you find your way out of the woods without a phone or GPS? I spent the day with lead instructor of the Navigation 101 course, Jax Janega, and she taught me the old school ways of how to use a compass and a map to survive in the woods for a weekend.
And Gunter and I are here at the Jackson County Chamber's Lunch and Learn, helping small businesses.
As President Trump tries to ban DEI in schools, what will happen to UGA's DEI initiatives? These stories and more live at 5 on the Grady News Source YouTube.
What's really great about these little small teases, we'll stack them in Facebook stories, we'll stack them on YouTube shorts, and we'll stack them on Instagram stories. Is it takes, once you've done it a couple times, and they're all very awkward at the beginning of the semester. They're like, oh, I don't know how to make this, look, and I got to hold the phone. And the more you do it, the better and the quicker you get. So as soon as they land wherever they're going to report that day or what story they're telling, we make them turn the camera on themselves, tell us what's going on and what they're doing in just 5 or 10 seconds, and send it in by noon. So it's just part of our workflow. Like, this is what you do when you show up. And that has provided a lot of good engagement that we wouldn't otherwise get. So any questions or thoughts about seeing the reporting or cool things that you have done when it comes to not just showing people the story on digital, but showing them the story behind the story, the reporting process? Awesome. Okay, I'll take your silence as raptured joy. Why not? So the last piece of this, if I'm going to take what I'm doing as a station and turn it into digital content, I'm going to think about how I can see the story, or I'm going to think about how I see the reporting or the process, or I'm going to think about how I see the engagement. What makes digital is that it's a two-way, well, a million-way conversation instead of a one-way conversation. All of our legacy platforms are unilateral. We deliver the information to you and you receive it. And yes, you can call in or, write a letter to the editor or, but it is literally just a one-way track. Digital is fundamentally different in that it allows for engagement. And I think sometimes still we just treat it more like a one-way track. So a couple quick options, and I know y'all know some of this stuff, but just trying to, put ideas, possibly new ideas in new frames. Whenever you can, ask questions. I will say, as somebody who, grew up at the founding of the internet, I know it's dangerous to ask the public sometimes to weigh in because they say things and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to moderate the content section. So I do understand that, but I will say that in general, particularly in our local news situations, it's going to turn out better more often than not. And so when we are asking or when we're posting anything on any platform, is there an opportunity to say, what do you think about this? What would you like to know more about? Can you share your photos of this? How would you vote if it's, if you were on the board of commissioners, right? Fill in the blank. When we just post a headline or just the news value, that's fine. And they need to know those things, but it's not participatory. It doesn't invite participation. And literally what people are looking for on digital is the ability to have a conversation. That's why they go there in the first place. And so if you can ask questions or drop polls, not particularly Twitter and polls, it doesn't really work anymore, but there are other ways polls work. So I'm just going to show you some examples of different polls that we've done recently. You try to obviously limit the amount of options. I love this, the what did we miss? They're driving back from covering the Capitol. Are there anything, you want to know more about? Favorite part about the Super Bowl? One of the keys to doing polls and questions, though, is making sure that you show people the engagement. It's not just having them vote in something or respond to something or share something. You have to then cycle back on the next broadcast, the next show, back on digital and say, this is what people said they wanted to hear more about. This is what people said they cared about when it comes to the Super Bowl. And I think this is literally where news organizations drop the ball the most. They're like, we would like more clicks and engagement. So we are going to put a question or a poll or, some kind of engagement out there. But then no one ever finds out what people type in that box, right? Or and it's like it disappears off the face of the earth. So I would say if you're going to do some kind of engagement on digital products, whatever it is, you've got to be really faithful and specific about allocating time to circle back. And that is what we have found to be the most useful, is to make sure that we're saying, this is what happened next. There is a really crazy thing, by the way, at UGA called the Marriage Pact, where all the kids like fill out a survey and they get matched with someone at the university who they would be compatible with, but they don't know them at all. And then they have the opportunity to reach out and contact them. It was a whole thing this year, y'all. I'm just saying, what a crazy program. Anyway, lots of different ways that you can do these. These are just all of our Instagram stories and ways that we've interacted. But again, showing is the most important. What happens after the poll? What did people say? What was the most vibrant comment? And making sure you go back on air or back to your digital platforms and share the results. We are also always asking for, and you'll remember this because I just showed it to you, different ways that people can say, hey, you didn't go to G Brand, you need to go to the G Brand barbecue place. Okay, comment down below your favorite Oglethorpe County restaurants that we should be visiting. When at all possible, ask people to engage. What we found and what research shows us in digital media is that people will engage more often if there's some kind of call out. Now, to be honest, they won't always actually answer the prompt that you give them. They will sometimes just say other things, which is fine, but they feel led to participate because you've invited them to participate. Literally what happens, strangely enough, is the more trolling happens when people are not asked to participate. You just post something, and then they just have this irrational desire to post back, versus I'm actually asking you to participate in this conversation. What do you have to add? You're going to get more relevant responses. So I just try to do those types of call outs whenever possible. And then very specifically, kind of like we already mentioned, make sure you respond and tell. So this was a piece that we did on a man retiring from county government work after nearly 45 years. Comment below on how Will has impacted your life in Oglethorpe County. Okay, that was kind of our call out here. We had 61 comments, which again, in our little county is a lot. Most of them ended up being congratulations. They weren't necessarily talking about, but there were a number that popped up. We're going to miss you seeing during Friday night football season. Thank you for your many years of service. Hope to see you around. And then as we went down, let me see if I can find them. Always glad to see you, right? I was in elementary school with you. Great guy. The years my kids were in sports, he was always so cordial. This ended up being like such a thing for Will. I mean, like people specifically went out of their way to comment and to engage because we asked them just to share their thoughts and memories about a guy who'd been around in service a long time. So, just encourage that. Obviously, I still had to kind of watch it to make sure no one was doing anything naughty in there, but they didn't. Thank goodness, they were well behaved, and it ended up being just a wonderful community moment when everyone really rallied for kind of an unsung hero. So just encourage you all constantly to, can we respond? Can we tell? Can we ask for suggestions? Can we do questions and polls? That can be the digital product that you create. It doesn't have to be a minute 15 package, right? Or a 20-minute podcast that you post online. In fact, it shouldn't be. It should be, how can I see the story? How can I see what's going on behind the story? Or how can I specifically engage the audience on this story? And that's your digital element. That's it. Nice and tight, and just one of the three will do. So we can do some examples real quick, or any questions or any thoughts at this point.
I have a couple other people with questions that were
Okay.
sent in, if we want to do those, or we can
Yeah, let's do those, Mackenzie. Thank you for like running the board behind the scenes. You're great.
Oh, my pleasure. One of the questions was about tools for scheduling, streamlining content on different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, etc.
Yeah. Well, and probably scheduling is part of streamlining, I would guess. I think you were you were thinking ahead there. So a couple different things. We use what's called Social News Desk here at UGA, but I will be honest, it's pricey. We are able to get kind of a discount because of our volume of usage and all of that. Social News Desk right now to me is one of the best social media schedulers. And streamliners, because it was made by journalists. So if you remember like TweetDeck and Hootsuite and some of the like social media management tools of the past that were very popular, they tend to have more of a PR advertising kind of bend. But Social News Desk is literally made for journalists. And so we use that tool, and we like it a lot. And it allows us to, and I'll just go ahead and bring it up so you can kind of see it. It allows us to not only schedule out content, but also watch all of our content across. Oh, Jean, yes, we're like Social News Desk friends. So we can set up these dashboards where I can see what's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and this is our RSS feed from our website. And I can kind of get a sense of that, but we can also post and schedule, all of our content out that way as well. There's some in-depth analytics and things like that. So I do that for News Source and for the Echo. We have both of those. And then there are also cool tools that you can do social media monitoring or social media listening, which I highly recommend, where you're literally getting up and while you're having your coffee in the morning, you're, just peeking at everybody and seeing what the stories are. And by curating these social media listening dashboards, it allows you to do that. Now, there are some other tools that do this, and I'm curious what you all use out there. I know some of them, the stations we've worked with use Buffer. Hootsuite is still a choice, and those both have free levels, as Social News Desk does not. And so, if you're looking for a free tool, I will also say that if you are just in the Facebook and Instagram world, Meta has now a scheduling tool for both. So you can actually do it in the app itself. You don't need a separate program. So I volunteer with rescue horses as a side gig for fun. It's part of my other part of my life, and so I run their social media through Meta. And in Meta itself, they will have both Facebook and Instagram, and you can schedule out posts. You can see who's getting what engagement and what that looks like, because it's a nonprofit. We don't have extra money to buy a tool. Now, if you're going to be using lots of other tools, that's why a social media manager does kind of a better job. But if you're really just sticking in meta land for now, also YouTube does allow you to schedule things out, and on its free plan to an extent. And there's a lot of great YouTube analytics that you can get there. Does that answer that question? Whoever asked it.
It was whoever signed up for the form, so I'm not sure who asked it, but
that's fine. Well, then it is done. Were there any other questions, Mackenzie, or any other thoughts out there?
We had a couple more things, but do we want to go ahead and do those or move along?
I'm okay with doing other questions for now.
Okay, cool. One more question, I guess, about kind of platform software, and then we'll move into kind of more strategy. The last one was, do you have a good tool you would recommend for transforming horizontal video into vertical video? I've used a couple different free tools, but I haven't found a great one.
Nope. And unfortunately, I'm going to be very unsatisfying for you here. No, I haven't found a great one either. So, I do think, unfortunately, the aspect ratio and everything gets stretched and squished with any tool, and it feels yucky. What I would encourage people to start doing is taking both types of video. And it sounds so elementary. But we are really now trying to condition our students into take some horizontal video, take some vertical video. Just like when you shoot visual journalism, still photojournalism, you're going to take horizontal and vertical photos. It's really no different. And so you're thinking about the things that would work more for now. Conceptually, there's a little bit of a difference when you're taking a horizontal or vertical still photo. You're looking at the composition of the photo itself. To some degree, that guides your decision with video too. But the other layer that guides your video is literally the type of story you're telling. So vertical video right now, and this will likely change, signals informality. It signals conversational. It signals more intimate. Vertical video feels more personal and intimate. Horizontal video feels more traditional, more to some degree, not want to say more credible, but kind of. And I think it's just because of how we've been socialized with video moving forward, the way our TVs are shaped, the way our screens are shaped, right? So if you're going to have a longer conversation that's more in depth and you need context, I'm going to be shooting horizontal video. If I'm doing something quick that's getting kind of more of a hot take or just a quick sense of what's happening, or I'm talking just myself, I'm going to shoot vertical.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know a lot of people these days are conditioned to be thinking digital first. We're going out into the field and producing stories, but not everyone is thinking in that mindset yet. Do you have any tips on how to implement this sort of strategy for people who aren't thinking digitally first and have not maybe adapted to all of new media as opposed to traditional yet?
Yeah, and our industry is not known for moving fast, which is funny because we move so fast every day. I just find that to be a fun juxtaposition, and I'm part of that too. I think there are two kind of important concepts. One is going to be more philosophical. I think at some point very soon, and I think the students that I'm teaching are going to kind of start leading this part of the revolution, is we need to stop saying anything but just journalism or reporting or content or news and information, or the big word categories need to kind of be our focus instead of the type of product or platform. um, Whenever I go out to grab content, I'm assuming it's going to go everywhere and for everyone and everything that I can possibly use it for. And so once we're like, I'm doing this for digital, or I'm doing this for the radio show, once we kind of like stop doing that and we just say, I'm going to go cover this story, and I'm going to make sure I get things that are going to work on lots of different places. I think that's when we've achieved quote unquote digital first. Like it's that full integration. Um, and that does take time because you just have to become familiar with the tools. Like you just got to play with it. You got to spend like some Saturdays just messing around so you don't feel uncomfortable with the tools that you're using. Um, but I think the other part of it, literally in our newsrooms, has been actually literally asking the students to do the digital first. So when they go out and do anything, we say, shoot what you're going to use for Instagram first. Send that to us, and then focus on what you're going to do for the legacy platform. And that's hard for them because the legacy platform has a firmer deadline, right? Digital doesn't have that kind of a deadline. But our show is going live at 5, whether we like it or not. So the professors, the people in charge, my instructors, everyone just trying to say, I understand that, but go out and do your 30-second stand up first for Instagram, and then start working on your assignment. And that, I think, is slowly kind of changing the culture game. I'm also seeing a really cool conversation going on between Hope and Jean. What's going on? Okay, you mentioned vlogging. And Hope's vlogging, Jean. Okay.
Hi, yeah, kind of. So our I team does what they call the behind the investigation. And so we have a streaming desk. And so basically what we do is we have two of our people from that team interview the other person about how they did that week's investigation, right? These usually end up being like 30 to 40 minutes. So we publish them as videos on like YouTube and on our site. And then we rip the audio and then post the audio to like, Amazon, or not Amazon, sorry, to Spotify, Apple, whatever. And it's currently our highest performing podcast. It does really, really well, and I think partially it's because of what Amanda was talking about, with people are really into like behind the scenes, and it also doesn't help. Or it also does help that a lot of people on our I team are very funny and are very, personable. So even though it is like a kind of sit down podcast type thing, I think it does well because people are also attracted to their personalities, which you see, on like YouTube with, YouTubers and people on social media. People are attracted to not only the story, but also the personality behind the story.
So Hope, I love everything that you said, and I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a window of opportunity, like you talked about. We all know, because we're journalists, some people are really good interviews, and some people you're like, holy crap, I'm going to have to make this sound interesting, right? And this is just, part of our job is to like frame it and edit it and, make it work for the audience so they know what they need to know. But I think we have an opportunity now with digital tools to capitalize on those really great interviewees, right? Like the sources, the people in our newsroom, the people in our communities, the influencers in our communities. Bring them in, have conversations, and chop those up and put them out on digital platforms where they're going to get engaged with. We all know there are some great storytellers in our communities, people that literally just people want to listen to. And that does make all the difference. I think the most compelling news angle is fine and all, but if you are enjoyable and engaging, you literally can do something more with that content. So I love that you all are doing that. And I love it. A 30-minute vlogcast / podcast / is getting that much engagement. I think that's fantastic. I also, by the way, just as a journalism scholar want to say that's just so good for us in our industry, that people are seeing the work that we put in and the value in the process, because we need more people to understand that, right? To support news. Okay, so any other questions or thoughts or anything? Okay, I have a ridiculous amount of tabs open, y'all. This is not even a joke. Okay, and so Jean's talking about news at 11. Ooh, and the Plus app. I'm interested to see where all these Plus apps are going, right? And how these are gonna take off. It didn't work for CNN, but I believe it can work for us. Just a quick kind of way to think about these things moving forward, as a last exercise. I think for me, the real skill now, so hopefully you got a couple of new ideas, or maybe, just new tools or new ways to kind of think about presenting information digitally from what you already have. The thing that we really try to imbue in our students is that like digital producer mindset, where they are able to look at a piece of content and go, oh, I could do this, I could clip this, I could show it this way, I could write this about it, it could go here. To me, that's the hardest thing to train. And if I were to do professional development in newsrooms right now, in any type of newsroom, it would be training that digital producing mindset into people, which is I give you a piece of content and then we think of like 10 different ways that we could present it to our audience across 10 different platforms. That literally takes just reps. It's like strength training. And the more that you see the opportunities and the possibilities, the better and the quicker you get at doing that. I think most of us tend to just go back to the same platforms and the same techniques. Just like we write our stories the same way, just like we write our scripts the same way, it's like it feels comfortable, we can do it fast. But working on that muscle is really, I think, the key to success with all of this. So I just pulled the WSAV story from their website, and I just wanted to kind of brainstorm, with you, for you, through you, like the different ways that we could literally make this a digital piece. Like we could present this on digital platforms. So I will be honest, I actually haven't thought about this at all. I tried to make sure that I just pulled something, and I'm going to be watching it literally with you, and then we can brainstorm through it. So let's take a look.
Fighting the battle off the battlefield. A Low Country charitable organization is doing just that every day, helping veterans deal with life away from combat. And as WSAV's Andrew Davis tells us, OpFob hopes they can bring light to a critical issue.
A way of giving back and raising awareness and spreading the word about, on average, the 22 to 44 veterans a day that we're losing to suicide.
Veterans and active military losing their fight off the battlefield. That's why citizens and veterans alike are at OpFob tending this fire, keeping it going for 22 straight days.
It's all about those brothers and sisters to your left and right flank, and that's how you're able to get through some of the most stressful situations, whether you're getting shot at or whether you're not. And then all of a sudden you get out and poof, you go back home or you settle down in a different community, and you don't feel like you have that brotherhood or sisterhood.
That community losing its brothers and sisters at an alarming rate.
We just had a 4th annual Concert for the Heroes 2 weeks ago, and just by chance I was, hey, raise your hand if you've lost somebody to suicide. Half the group of 3,100 people raised their hand, and it was gut-wrenching.
And that's why OpFob was created. Founder J.R. Brown had seen too many of his friends die, so he gave them a place they could come, talk, or just be with people who know what they're dealing with. It's something even regular folks like Pat Fry appreciated, and why he came to help.
I'm a civilian, but had a father that served in World War II. You can't do enough for veterans as far as I'm concerned.
This fire will continue to burn through Memorial Day, not just to remember the fallen, but to keep the fire inside the veterans still here, burning bright.
To know that every person that has come through that gate is still here, that motivates us on our mission.
Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3 on your side.
Okay, so this is definitely can be participatory. and I wrote down a couple ideas that popped into my head as I was watching. Any thoughts about what we could do with a package like this on any digital product or platform? Just what comes to mind? What would engage you? And if you're currently working while you're listening right now and you can't speak up, I get it. Steve.
Oh, hey, I was reacting to you saying if you're working, you get it.
Okay, never mind.
but I mean, while I'm on, so I was thinking about like the stories they were telling around the campfire. They talked about they told their stories, but you didn't hear any of them.
So, Steve, yes. Oh my gosh. Like that could be like a mini podcast, an audio visualized podcast. It could be a little video piece where we just hear a story. Steve, keep on working. You're doing great.
Okay, thanks.
Jean says, sit at the fire with those folks and just chat for an hour. So, similar idea.
And I think if we think about, I mean, I've got the narrative of one person's life, right? One of the things that radio and TV are always limited by is time. I mean, always, right? You're not a 3,000 word Atlantic article, Atlantic Monthly article, which nobody really reads as much as they used to anyway. But that if what we do is we show this, right, as a piece of kind of solutions journalism, which is great, but then create like this buffet of digital options that allows us to dive deeper into elements of this. Like you could pick out 3 people's stories and create kind of mini podcasts or just mini little video pieces where they do tell their story. And then package that together. That could be really powerful on social digital platforms. The other couple things that I would think of for sure, one is we had a lot of data thrown around. There were several data points, and I don't know about you, but hearing someone say percentages and numbers doesn't just, you know what I mean? Like I got into journalism like most of us were like math, and so someone be able to like visualize that, right? And to say like 50% or the actual numbers and just have that kind of graphic that allows us to kind of take a minute and go, half of those people have lost someone. That it's insane. That number is insane. And I think that visualizing that would be particularly powerful. I think Jean just said something. Right? Yes. Ooh, that's pretty intense. Yeah. Um, I think there's a sense where there's a lot of depth to a story like this. So, Herb. Excellent, right? So not just this event and this fire going, but like what does this mean? How does it impact things later on? What is the community like involvement and what do they feel about it? What are they doing? These are all little great pieces we could pull out on digital. Another big thing is like, I don't know about you, but they said they were keeping that fire going for, did they say 21 hours? I don't remember. I would literally have people check in almost like with a live stream of that fire going. Like, and to like see, you could do a time lapse video. You could do check-ins with a live stream. You could have a reporter go back several times and just, hey, they're still here. This is what they're talking about now. There's such an interesting visual in our world today to have something more long-term, right? That's being kept alive. That's I feel like that's just a visual opportunity that digital would enjoy. I also would love to see this reporter sitting down with people at the fire. This, I think some other people have mentioned that already. And to see that conversation happening in that kind of relaxed, informal environment.
Fighting the battle off the battlefield. The Low Country Charitable.
I started it again. Okay. The only other question is about engagement for me. I think, obviously we want to be thoughtful here and not exploitive with anything we do with engagement that involves the loss of loved ones or, in challenging topics. I do think that there are ways to use engagement. Like, are there organizations or people that veterans have gone to for help, that you can share below. In addition to this one, there are ways that you can crowdsource information that doesn't feel like you're asking people to share their personal stories in a very vulnerable way. That tends to be more, again, crowdsourcing of resources or opportunities or possible actions. I would love to see a digital piece that allows me to go to this website for this organization and donate, or volunteer, or maybe even a locator map about where they are if I can show up and be encouraging. So just all thoughts about digital components. And then I think we have one more. This was a fun kind of show called Sunday Conversations. It's the Davis Broadcasting Group, if anyone's on here from there. And it's where somebody sits down at their radio station and talks to like a local entrepreneur and figures out their story. So I just want to play a little bit of this and then again think about digital products and platforms.
This is Sunday Conversations. Sunday Conversations is a presentation of Davis Broadcasting Inc. in cooperation with Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Hello and welcome to Sunday Conversations on Smooth Jazz 101, Smooth Jazz 100. I'm your host, Ashley Scott, with the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. And today I'm here with another outstanding stakeholder, Ms. Chantel Powell of Play Pits. Good morning, Chantel.
Good morning.
Now, first I want to ask you, how did you get started on this entrepreneurial journey? If you want to talk a little bit about your background, that'd be cool too. But how did you end up starting Play Pits?
Yeah, so I started Play Pits because one hot July summer day, my sweet little baby boy Cam at 6 years old got in my car and literally changed my life because he smelled so bad. And I wanted something that was safe and effective for him, but I also wanted something that was fun, exciting, and playful. Only to go to the stores to discover that there wasn't anything on the shelves that was reflective of my kid. And so I got in the kitchen and I did what my grandmother used to do. She used to pat baking soda under my arms before I would go out and play. But I knew I wanted something that would be long lasting because he was an athlete. He was a youth athlete playing long days and hot days. So I took some baking soda and some cornstarch and some coconut oil and I scented it with an orange essential oil. And that's how Play Pits was born.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so this is like the most fun, right? I mean, this is a fantastic like interview with like a local entrepreneur and there's humor in it, right? She's like, my kid smelled so bad. I love this. And if my children also smelled so bad after their athletic practices. Ways to see this story, and I see time, so I'm just going to be kind of quick about this. Like putting up the ingredients and the recipe, right? Like, like these are the elements that go into it and what they found. I love when they start laughing there in the middle about like the actual like origin story of this product. Even having that laughing clip with a little bit afterwards could be great. This is a great opportunity for that vlogging thing, seeing these two in the studio talking and having a good time about it. I would love a before and after of her son, like how old he was, like when she did this and like how old he is now, and seeing that. Obviously video like of the product and things like that could be really useful too. Those are all ways that you could take this really fun, interesting, kind of radio conversation and then really visualize it for digital media. So I believe we are out of time. The one thing I do want to tell you about very briefly is Griffiths Innovators. This is a program that I run through the University of Georgia, and Mackenzie's been doing a great job of sending out links through GAB for applications. If you want to try some of these things, but you'd like someone to help, I literally have a team of students every year that I assign to stations to do this work. We have two different models for Griffiths Innovators. It used to be kind of two formally different programs, and now they're together. One is a student will be with you for 2 to 3 hours a week for the whole academic year remotely to help you with some of these things. Or they can come for 1 week in the newsroom in early January and actually spend the whole week working with you, plus research on either side. Um, and so if you are interested in like, hey, I want to take a deep dive into behind the scenes content and like, making our Instagram profile really sing, I would love to send a student to help you with that. And this is a free program to you. It's through an endowment from Richard Griffiths, former vice president of CNN. And so I would encourage you to apply to this program. It's on the GAB website to do that. And we will be sending out students in August. It's August and September. We'll be making matches and pairs. And that's one way that I can help you do all these things that we talked about without you having to worry about doing all these things that we talked about. Any last questions or thoughts? Thank you.
We will send this presentation around as well as the recording. So please share this with others in your station who might find this information interesting. And we're going to have another webinar in a couple months, and we'll have more information on that soon. But please sign up for that one as well and just help us spread the word about these awesome sessions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking with you all today.